With over 500,000 trees and shrubs already planted and growing, it's easy to forget you are in the city. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stained City way.
Good evening and welcome to Real Talk on SABC 3. The stage is yours. We are struggling in our fight against crime. Our criminal justice system is short-staffed and overstretched by some of the highest crime stats in the world. What can be done? Well, the focus has shifted from punishment to education and rehabilitation in prisons. This is to end the cycle of criminals being released but ending up back behind bars because they aren't equipped with the skills necessary to start a new life for themselves. And once you have a criminal record, a lot of opportunities could be closed to you for life. So today, we're joined by ex-offenders who've made the most of their time in prison. There are motivational speakers, entrepreneurs, and one against all odds is a lecturer of psychology. How did they do it? How did they turn their lives around? We welcome to Real Talk, Moresi Teledi. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Anele.
I'm so fascinated by your story. 27 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone's like, That's how you get them, right? They're like, 27 what?
Yeah.
So you went to jail, found guilty for defrauding a bank for 27 million, right? Just quickly, because this is not about the crime, can you just bring us up to speed what happened, how it happened? Because I'd like to more discuss with you, you know, the rehabilitation afterwards, finding your way back to yourself. So what happened with that 27 million?
I worked for the bank. I was a supervisor. And 2008, I was approached by two of my regular customers to defraud the bank. At first, I said no. The love of money brought me closer and closer to these guys. They gave me tips, shopping vouchers. The list is endless. When these guys demanded me to transfer 2.7 million rand, I refused. The fact that I took their tips and the shopping vouchers, I had to pay for it. They threatened me, they followed me, they knew everything about me.
Because now you built a relationship that could be frowned upon.
Yeah.
Okay. Where did they give them to you? Did they meet you outside the bank and give you the shopping vouchers?
They would come in as regular customers to deposit money or withdraw money, and they'll be like, no, buy yourself cold drink or buy yourself that. And
was it always together or did you know them separately?
Always together, but yeah, always together.
Yeah.
And when they decided that they are going to threaten me, my family's life were at stake. And my last threat was on the 24th of December, 2009. They were outside my house looking at my child while he was playing. Gave me a call and said, if I don't transfer the funds immediately, they were going to kill my child. Losing my child was not an option. I went to the system, transferred 2.7 million rand. After an hour, I felt guilty. I went back to the system, increased the money to 27 million rand in order for the account to get frozen. Okay. Biggest mistake of my life.
So you transferring 2.7 million, do you not think that could get you into trouble?
You know, at that time, Anele, I was not thinking straight. I was scared that something could happen to my child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long were the threats happening? Because obviously you say you were refusing and then
Almost a year.
What?
Telling you. I collapsed during, you know, my working hours. I was admitted in hospital and I was scared to tell the truth.
So you didn't speak to us like an authority at the bank, go to the cops, nothing?
No one.
Why is that?
I was scared. They knew everything. They once described what my mother was wearing, where my mother worked, where my son went to school. They knew everything. They even once told me what I ate during my lunchtime. So they had people inside that I was working for that they were giving information. So the situation was
Do the banks not have a system that protects you against that? Because if you can transfer money, surely there should be some sort of system that protects you against that.
I was scared, Anele.
Okay.
Let's just
so the system is there, but you didn't use it?
There is. If you report, and yeah, they will protect you, I guess. But I didn't. I was scared to tell the truth.
So I understand that they were in your trial every day, sitting inside the crowd. Why did they do that?
I think they were checking if I would tell the court the truth and they would use it against me or kidnap one of my family members or do something to them.
So they were scared that you would finger them and say,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't do it alone, this is where...
Yeah.
So did the amount get frozen?
Yes, it did.
So they never got the
a
money?
cent, yeah.
Hold on to that. All
But
right.
I went to prison.
Okay, so you went to prison. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
How quickly does the reality that this is who I am now, I am a convicted criminal, and I'm in prison, how does that sink in?
With me, I was awaiting trial for 2 years. 2 years later, I had to take my baby out. And that's when reality hit me, that I'm serving a 10-year sentence. How am I going to serve my 10-year sentence? I decided that I want to study, I want to better myself, I want to come out as a better person. I walked in as a criminal, a tag of a criminal. I wanted to walk out with a different tag.
When does that change come? Because, I mean, I've never been to prison, but I think for the first year, I'd cry myself to sleep. Were you doing that?
I cried. I cried a lot. But remember, even if you cry, Anele, doors won't open. You have to be strong for your family. And for me, the most important people were my kids. So I needed to be strong for them. So I had to pull up my socks and get myself together and, yeah, served my sentence in a positive way. Yeah.
What was your worst fear about going to prison?
Die in prison. I used to live in a single cell, and what if a fire breaks, you know, like there's a fire or something, and I'm locked up, and there's a master key, there's a process for the master key to be, you know, to be there, and it's something that I don't know how to explain it, but it was fear for me at that time, that during that sentence, am I going to get out of prison? Should something happen, if I get sick or get a heart attack, who's going to help me? Things like that. So yeah.
Did you not get bullied?
You do get bullies. You need to be strong. I fought once.
As in physically
physical, yeah.
Punch you, masilwe, then let's rather die. And is that the only way you can
I had to prove a point, I guess, that no one will take advantage of me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I fought.
And in terms of then your family, they're on the outside. How frequently are you talking to them? Are they allowed to give you things? Can they bake you bread and give it to you?
Bread? We are in prison at that time. You get to see your family like during weekend visiting hours, which is like 45 minutes, and that's it. And the only thing that they can bring is toiletries only.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a video. Your mom wanted to weigh in on this about how she felt every time she would come and see you. Can we please play that?
Hi, Salin. Ke ne ke lahlehetswe ke bonna ba ka. E re ke fihla tronkong, ngwana ka nako nngwe nang kgutlisa a re mama, kgutlela morao ha o so amohele.
So you told your mom to stop coming to see you. She's going to come and feel sorry for you.
You know, Anele, my mom was something else. She changed. I could see that she was hurting. And the only way for me to calm her down, it's for her not to come and visit me, I guess. And she knew that I was serving a 10-year sentence, but every time she visited, she would ask me the same question over and over. When are you coming home? Imagine, when are you coming home? She asked me that question, it was 2013, and I was like a year in my sentence. And she was like, when are you coming home? When is your term finishing? And I was like, Ma, I'm coming home. At first I was like, I'm coming home next year, I'm coming home next year. But I felt like, you know, I'm destroying her. She needs to accept that I'll be gone for a very long time, and she needs to accept it.
Do you feel like you let her down?
Yes, I did.
Have you gotten over that?
Not really, because they took me to school. Before I got arrested, I've got a national diploma in journalism. My mom thought I was going to be the great journalist ever. And voila, I was in prison. And coming back and I lost everything. Have to start afresh, went back home. So you can imagine, she has to support me again. You can imagine.
But I mean, you've since found some sort of light. You put on a play that's educating people, you know, to show people not to take your path. You know, what's the best thing you've done for yourself since you came out?
Inspirational talks to various financial departments. I've done your Standard Bank, your Nexa, going to schools, to churches, and being part of Shutter Dream was the biggest for me because we got to go to Grahamstown and your State Theatre, your Civic Theatre. So you can imagine a lot of people learned a lot out of that play and being the leading actress as well. So yeah.
Look, things are looking up.
Yes, things are.
Things are looking up. You're not going anywhere. Muresi Cheledi will be back to share more about her fascinating journey back to herself. She'll do that later on. Next, businessman Themba Lukele had flashy cars, lavish homes, expensive clothes, and all that money could buy. But behind all of this was a life of crime. His story is up next. And welcome back. Themba Lukele was more than just a number when he was arrested. He had made headlines as a successful businessman from Soweto with a lavish lifestyle and was linked to a crime syndicate involved in cash and transit heists and car hijackings. But he never stood trial for those crimes. A domestic dispute ended in him being sentenced to 7 years in prison. Now he says he's a changed man and a man of God, motivating young people to learn from his mistakes. And this is why we have him here. Welcome, Themba.
Greetings, is I'm right?
I'm
good, thank you.
So now, yes, your first brush with the law wasn't the lavish lifestyle. You were 15, and your house at your home, you guys used to house our comrades, right?
That's right.
MK.
Yes.
And obviously there were guns at home.
Yeah.
And you took a gun to school.
Very interesting. Yeah, well, it was around the time of political upheavals and violence. Yeah, just before our former late statesman was released. So my house and my home was chosen as a base. And, you know, I was camping with the people who were relentless in their quest to protect the community. So I would spend many nights with different changing faces. So I decided one day to steal one of many guns. And there was no specific reason, but I wanted to be hero worshipped at school. So I sneaked out one AK-47. So for the first time, my peers, they saw the Russian mean machine. It was because of this young man, Themba Lukele. Well, we enjoyed that. It lasted for a moment, but it was a saddening story because one of my friends decided, no, let us take this a level higher. And then we committed a crime. And then, sadly, we were arrested. So for the first time, I was arrested at the age 15 with an AK-47.
Did you go to jail?
No. We remember we were just underage, so you are released in the custodians. In the care of your parents.
Okay. So, because now you said something to me that stands up, that you were hero worshipped, right? That's what you wanted. So let's cut to the lifestyle then, the lavish lifestyle, you know, the cash heists that were allegedly there. In all of that, because you didn't feel the wrath of what you did as a kid, right? Was there a certain element of, I'll never get caught?
Not really. You know, all the time, you know, I was reading a lot when I got to that place, you know, of most hopeless of places, which was a prison. And I was reading a book by Prophetess John Japan. She says in a book, every pastor, preacher, mentor, and motivator has been given a people. So we are responsible to tell our story so that the people may know the power of God. When I looked back, you know, Themba, I never followed any rules. I made my own rules. And I don't even remember if my parents approved of my many friends. But Themba was a guy to go to. And my house was more like a one-stop shop. So I realized there was that great talent. But remember, if a talent is not well managed, and God gives us a talent and gives us vice. So sometimes this vice becomes much greater than the talent. So it becomes a problem.
But now you have 16 cars and you have 2 houses. I've always, and I'm asking this out of pure curiosity for myself, when you're living a life like that, do you sleep at night? Because surely you should feel like this could end tomorrow. I could be shot dead tomorrow, or the police could come in now.
You know, to be quite honest, I lived a life that was food for a prince or for a king. And for a young, black man at the age 27, and you've got all of these things, it was more like, it's a done deal. You know, I mean, I would go to any place. I didn't have to actually introduce myself. When I get to the clubs, and then they know you. They could actually be able to put up a face with a name. But unfortunately, there was a sad ending story. And my ticket to prison, unfortunately, it was a relationship that was toxic that I got myself involved in. And, I was never, ready for that. And I was not able to get out of that of that sticky situation, if you know what I mean.
Because, okay, so you went to your now ex-wife's house because she'd been cheating on you, and you were threatening her, and that's how you got the criminal charges, because you took a phone and you took her, so they said it was kidnapping.
Yes.
Okay, so now here's the thing. It's a little thing compared to what you were doing. Were you beating yourself up? You'd be like, Barry, what a flop that you get arrested for something this small.
For lack of a better word, I will say I made some serious irrational decisions. And when I think about the things that I've done in my primitive years, they make me leave my head hanging in shame. And unfortunately, we can no longer change our past. We can only change and influence the future. That was a turning point in my life. And I realized that, when God wants to work with someone, he looks into the heart. And how do we find favor? If your heart is pure, and then you will find favor with God. And if you find favor with God, ultimately you'll find favor with men.
When did you find that your heart was pure?
When I've always known, because I've been a staunch Christian for
even
half
through the
of my
criminal
life.
activities.
If I went
So live life, boy.
No, that's very true, precisely. I went knee-deep into criminal activities, knowing very well. I remember I was battling with myself. I was talking to my late brother, Bafana, and I said to him, Bafana, excuse me, this is going to be a sad ending story. We want to be good business people. I know we've got a very good business acumen.
Yes, you
but
do.
let us turn these lemons into lemonade so that we stay out of these things.
So you were trying to get out of the criminal life?
Yes, we managed. We got out because remember, the aim was not to stay in there. We want to make money in unscrupulous ways. You enrich yourself, and you don't even care whether there are people or there are casualties in the process. But definitely sure, the life was about to take a nosedive or go south. And when I got to prison, I realized, we don't realize if freedom is so important until you are
don't
lost.
have it.
Yeah, I was lost and out for the last and the final count. And, my heart sank. I remember one time my daughter, came to see me in prison. And when she got there, she was only about 3 years of age. We know with TCS, it's called a cashless system. She took out a 50 rand that was hidden. And then she said to me, Temba, I realized, Daddy, that they told me that you are suffering here in prison. I got teary eyes. I cried myself to sleep. And I realized that when you get to prison, you are not only hurting yourself, but the people who are around you. Because remember, when they don't understand what goes on.
Would you say that moment is what saved you in prison?
That's one of the things. But when you go back to the book of Romans 8:28, everything works together for good for those who love him. But I went back to Exodus and I said, Prophet Moses, God wanted to do something. He took him into the wilderness of his life. So Temba I've paid considerable amounts of money from regional court. I went to High Court. From High Court, I went to the second highest court in the land.
You tried very hard to not go to jail.
Not to go to jail. But God wanted to do something with my life. And I'm happy today that, change is good, but though change is turbulent.
So Umurwesi says that she had to fight in prison to protect herself. Did you ever have to fight? Because, you must make sure that nobody messes with Temba.
One thing that is interesting with me is Temba had always had these leadership qualities, but the problem is, when you're cocooned in your own luxury, you don't realize how much potential that you have.
How convincing you are.
So when I got to prison, I changed prison time into the best time of my life. And actually, today I can tell you, I'm no longer the prisoner of the past, but I'm the pioneer of the future. And the prison was not my place of residence, but it was my place of reference. Today I can
just a place to pass through.
Precisely.
So why does Utemba refer to Utemba as Utemba?
No, it's because namhlanje I found myself. So the house, or a house that is divided against itself, it will fall. So I had to pull myself towards myself. And I said, who am I in Christ? Who am I in this life? And I said, no, man, there are many people. I've got kids. They are growing up, and then they'll be looking up to me. What kind of a father are you? If you are leading a life or you're living life without a purpose, the purpose we define it very simple. It is a God original intention about your life. So there was a God original intent about my life. That is why I had to go through what I went.
But my question is, why do you refer to yourself in the third person? Because you kept on saying Utemba, Utemba, but Temba's right here. You're not saying I. Is that something that was part of the process as well, to remove yourself from yourself?
Not really, not really. You know, just before I answer that, you asked something very interesting, if I fought in prison. When I got into prison, I became the champion of the system. I was co-opted into the biggest organization that was there, which was a Making a Difference generation. So I was chairing, and now we were doing all these rehabilitation programs. And then I decided, now I'm going to spearhead all the campaigns. So when you know, it was hectic. You know, we've got gangsters in prison. Your Big 5, 26, 27, Big 5 Air Force. And once hell broke loose, it becomes a problem. Because, you know, I can tell you now, Guti prison is more dangerous than the battlefield. I always tell young people when I go to schools, if you do the crime, you must well be prepared to do the time.
So wait, you coming back, because we're out of time, because you still haven't answered my question. Utemba, young shy. I want to know, why does he call himself Utemba? This is not the end of Temba's story. You'll hear more from him later on. Make sure that you stay with us. Coming up next, a man sentenced to 22 years in prison is now a lecturer of psychology. Find out how after the break. And welcome back. So crime is undeniably one of the biggest problems in our country, and it has caused damage and pain in many people's lives. If you've just joined us, my guests today are former criminals sharing their stories in the hope that others will learn from their mistakes. I'm now joined by Mbongiseni Mdagane, a former car hijacker who's now a PhD student and a psychology lecturer. We welcome you to Real Talk.
Thank you, Anele.
Are you nervous?
Yes, I am. I still am.
No, man, relax, we'll be fine. I'm very fascinated by your story. So you're currently studying for your PhD?
Yes, I am.
And your major, you are now a psychology lecturer, right?
Yes, I am.
When is the seed planted that, you know what, I am going to turn to academia to take me out of this hole?
To be quite honest, Anele, it wasn't my intention to go this far. It's just a ripple effect of something that happened a while ago. So back in 2004, when I decided to go back to school, 2005 I enrolled for my first diploma at UNISA. I did my 3-year teaching diploma, and then I completed it in 2007. Then from 2008 until 12, my first degree, my honors degree, my master's degree.
Is this all of this inside prison?
No, I was released in 2010 while I was still doing my first degree.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing my 3rd year. And then I completed my final year outside. Yeah.
Who pays for the studies when you're in prison?
NSFAS.
Okay, that's good. So even when you get out, then they continue to pay for you?
Well, yeah. Until, well, things change. How they administer their funds do change. I was quite fortunate in the sense that I've studied through NSFAS for my junior degree, my honors, and up until my my master's degree. Yeah.
So, okay, because you've got all this time in prison, right? Am I right in assuming that you have a lot of time in prison?
Well, yeah, partly right.
So, you know, you've got the time for your academic things, academic, that's the word I'm looking for. Hey man, you're the one with the degree between the two of us.
Academia.
Yeah, academia, right? When you get out, how do you fight the distractions to A, go back to crime, and to B, carry on with your academics?
Anele, it's resilience, eh?
Nah.
I kid you not. Because when you come out of prison, we are called fresh bloods. So like all the ladies after you.
Really?
I kid you not. And the distraction as well from friends, you know, your old-time friends, they're happy now that you are back. So obviously some of them think that you are still engaged in your previous criminal activities. So they'd always want to, you know, hook you back. But if you've got dreams and goals, and if you're resolute in what you want to achieve, then chances are you're not going to go back there, yeah, like I did.
So what was your changing moment? Because you say you have to be resilient, and it's not something that you learn outside when you get out of prison, when you're paroled. It has to be something that I assume that you must find within yourself inside prison. So what was the changing moment for you?
Okay, I would say that it boils down to intrinsic motivation. So I was involved with this one person, and one thing led to another. We had to break up, separate, and I was quite hurt by that. A relationship. I was involved in this relationship.
So were you inside prison?
Yeah, while I was inside prison.
So this person would come and see you?
Yeah. Until then, we finally split up, we broke up, and I was quite hurt. So I generated a lot of negative energy, which I needed to transform into something positive. And one of the ways that I could transform that negative energy into positive energy was to hit the books running. Oh, wow. So that's what happened. And then one thing led to another, and here I am today doing my PhD. Yep.
Hey, man. So I know when you're going into prison, there's a certain fear you have of prison. What fear did you have when you were getting out? Because I'm sure there's a certain comfort you find within the space of incarceration, right? Yeah. You get used to it. Yeah. Do you get used to it?
Yeah, you do. You get acclimatized to the situation. Even though when you first make your way into prison, you are going to experience what we call culture shock.
I'd
right?
imagine.
The place is different, how you do things are different, how you talk, how you speak, in fact, how you conduct yourself is different from the outside world. So you need to acclimatize.
Right? How you conduct yourself, how must you conduct yourself differently in prison? Are you allowed to tell us?
Say for instance, there are particular languages that are spoken in prison. So you're not permitted to speak a language in which you are not let's say maybe a particular gangster lingo, and then you're not affiliated in that gangster or to that gangster, then it becomes some sort of a challenge for them to hear you conversing in their own language, whereas you are not affiliated with them.
Yeah. So the night before you get out of prison, what was your biggest fear about being out?
Anele, you have no idea, because when I was released in prison, that was in 2010, October, right? And that was on a Friday.
You missed the World Cup, buddy.
Brah. But suffice to say that, okay, that aside, what really became a struggle for me was that the Friday that I was going to be released, the previous day I was writing my third-year paper. So you can imagine the apprehension,
the anxiety.
You know very well that you're about to go home, and then there are all these sorts of expectations. What am I going to expect? Am I going to find this, or have things changed? And then at the same time, you are required to focus and concentrate for your exam. So it was quite a difficult journey for me then. But because of my tenacity, and I just decided that I'm just going to,
So, Mangiseni, what are you not allowed to do because you've got a criminal record? Because I understand there's something in psychology, you can't be a research psychologist.
Yeah.
Please explain that to me.
Okay, so when you do your first year master's, for instance, myself in the psychology department, even the clinical psychology students, you are expected to register with the Health Professions Council of South Africa as a psychology student, right? It also applies in other professions as well. We've got numbers of offenders who are studying towards law degrees. They are also expected to affiliate with the South African Bar Council. We've got offenders who are studying towards social work degrees. There's a council also that they also need to affiliate with. But by virtue of having a criminal record, then you are rendered as being unfit and proper. And if you are not fit and proper, then chances of you practicing are quite slim. So there's the challenge that most of us are facing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a challenge, but I mean, you're studying for your PhD. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. You are literally in the light now, right?
You know, Anele, quite a number of people look at my story and they regard my story as a success story.
Yeah.
And I tell them that it's not. The story is still in the making. Because until such time that I realize what I want to become, then it's not the end of the journey. I see myself, I regard myself as an activist. Well, I wanted to register back then, but to be quite honest, I'm not interested now. I mean, as people, we have dreams, and then our dreams evolve, we change.
Good.
That's something that I wanted to do back then, but it's not something that I want to do now. I'm happy where I am as a lecturer at UNISA. UNISA has been very supportive. It's one place that I call home. I was actually telling my supervisor, Professor Edward Fourie, that there's really nothing that I can say about myself or describe myself without mentioning UNISA or Inside Out, Outside In, which has become my home.
Your home.
Yeah.
Listen, when you pass the PhD, we call you Dr. Mos.
Yeah, of course.
So the next time you come here, I'll call you Dr. Mdagan.
Yeah.
Okay, Doctor.
Okay, Doc.
We shall see. We say goodbye and thank you so much to Mbongiseni. What a story, right? Here's hoping more ex-offenders are enrolled in rehabilitation and education programs to stop the cycle of reoffending. Do you have a family member behind bars? How do you heal? How do you find forgiveness while waiting for their return? We'll talk all about that after this. And welcome back. We kicked off the show with Muresi Teledi's story, a young woman who committed bank fraud, gave birth in prison and was separated from her firstborn child and family. Muresi is back with clinical psychologist Kosi Giane. They're here to talk healing for the person inside prison as well as the loved ones left outside. Welcome back, guys. Muresi, the question I wanted to ask you, and I forgot to ask, and I'm glad you can be back, is you're talking about your mom and letting your mom down, but have you forgiven yourself?
Yes, I have. During my incarceration, I would say my 10-year sentence was a blessing in disguise. The programs that prison, offer, they are so awesome because when I walked in, I had a very low self-esteem, no confidence at all. But coming out, I've got low confidence, Anele, and you can see now. So yeah, I've healed. Yeah, I've healed. Yeah. Through prison programs. Prison has shaped me and pruned me to be the woman that I am today. Yeah, I have healed.
So, Kosi, how important is it for, to stop the cycle of reoffending? How important is it for offenders and criminals who come out of prison to have forgiven themselves?
I think it's paramount, and they can testify to that from what she's saying. But I think the one thing that comes through in all three stories is that our biggest prisons are not the physical prisons. Those will open at some point. Even though it may seem like a long time when you're there, like 10 years seems like forever, they will open. But our biggest prisons are here. They are psychological. Because once you incarcerate yourself in there, only you can get yourself out. Because they can take you out of that physical prison where they incarcerated you. But as long as you are still imprisoned within your own mind, you're not going anywhere very fast.
So, I mean, even for somebody who hasn't been a criminal, you could easily be a prisoner in your own mind. What are the steps to finding that key and unlocking it so you can free yourself?
Well, the biggest, I always say there are more prisoners outside of prison, and because of being prisons of our own mind. And you need to, first of all, you can't change what you don't see.
Please unpack that.
You can't change what you don't see, so there needs to be that walking into the cell.
Okay.
And I think part of being in that space of prison is that it trims all the fluff of life. It takes you to that place where you can only go within. Like, there's not much else to do outside,
Okay.
But by the same token, the fact that there's this high level of recidivism, which is that revolving door of people becoming habitual offenders, it still says that even when you're given that space, people talk about time heals. It is what you do in that time.
That is the healing factor.
Because you can be there for a short while, but travel distance psychologically and mentally in yourself. And let yourself out of prison while you're waiting for them to release you physically into the world, because you are free here mentally in yourself.
Muresi, I mean, when it comes to your children, the one you gave birth to them whilst you were incarcerated, the other one, is what the guys used to threaten you into getting you to do the criminal activity on. What's the reconnection like with them? Do they come see you when you're in prison? When you come out, surely there's a bit of a divide between you and your children. How did you heal that?
They used to visit me a lot
Okay.
In prison. The coming out was difficult because 6.5 years not being able to, guide them, be there for them, and it was a huge challenge, especially with my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Because every time I want to reprimand him, he'll be like, we've been doing it like this all along. And umkulu allows us to do this, or ugogo allows us to do that. And they love my sister. If they say auntie, like auntie this, auntie that. And it broke me at first, but I had to adjust and say they've done the best they could for my kids. And the fact that my kids were comfortable with them, it means they've done a good job. I had to, applaud them for that and find peace within. I still get it even today. No, auntie's coming, we'll get it if you don't want us to, to have it. So, yeah.
Now, because in that regard, because literally when I hear that, I think, lady, you must just come slowly into your children's lives, But ultimately, you want to get to a point where you are mom, What road is a person following in that regard?
It is a road. You don't just land and take over. And it's a very tricky road to walk, because we are, they're having to navigate this. We want you, but also it's just like, give us space. There's been life in your absence, so we've kind of had to get into a groove of doing life without you. So ungafiki manje and want to come and dictate. And there's also a sense, and even perhaps more unconsciously, of who are you to tell us what to do when you have failed to do the right thing? So...
Yes, and it's when you've got a criminal record.
Yes.
We are currently doing the right thing.
Exactly. So they can kind of want to play that card. And it's a very tightrope to walk, because, she has to assume her space, because she can't be a bystander, especially now that she's here. So it's a very tricky ebb and flow, in and out space to navigate. And you want to slowly make deeper and deeper inroads in terms of asserting your presence and reconnecting, because that's important. But it is change, and change is never, ever. Even something as beautiful as having a child, you have to adjust to your sleep, sleepless nights and the screamings and so on, even as you treasure that moment.
So, Morisi, how do you navigate that, the not being, I am your mother, knowing full well that they can throw certain things at you like, yes, but you are the one who did something wrong and not us?
One thing about my boys, they've embraced that I've got a criminal record, I'm from prison. I think the beautiful things that I'm doing currently, they just, like overshadowed everything, the crime and everything else. For them, I normally take them to my motivational talks, or rather some of my interviews, and I think they're excited. They're proud of me. And I'm going to host a show called Besuk, but no, I can't give you more details.
But you're hosting a show, okay.
I'm going to have my own show.
Which is what your mother wanted?
Yes. And you can imagine, they're so excited with Besuk. They are so excited with that. My criminal record in the 6 years has overshadowed everything else,
And especially the nature of the crime. It kind of mitigates, because it's understandable. Anybody in that, we can all relate.
And there was a protection of them
absolutely, we can all relate.
I hear what you're saying. What a beautiful thing that you've done for yourself. What a beautiful thing you're doing for your boys.
And for all of us.
Yeah, and for us. I am inspired by you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your resilience and your change.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to Besuk. On the way, former criminal Themba Lukele, he returns to talk to us about how he faced his demons when he had to come out. Stay with us. And welcome back. My guest, Themba Lukele, has put his criminal past behind him. Now he's a businessman, inspiring others not to follow in his footsteps. We're going to chat to him and still clinical psychologist Kosi Giane about owning up to one's mistakes and growing from them. But before we do that, he has a book here. We're just talking about how much we love the cover. So on the cover, it's him wearing that's your prison attire, but looking like it's designer. Obviously, look at you. And then the suit on the other side. How important was for you to pen this?
It was very therapeutic. When you're writing a book, visiting your dark tunnel or your dark past, you must know, Guti, if a man can laugh over his troubles, he's a man who can, you know, go to heavens on high. So the only thing that I did, I said, no, let me just, all the flames that were burning in my life, it is about time to reduce them into writing. And we know, Guti, we use books as a source of sharing, and sharing is caring. So I decided to say, let me just go out there and make noise about my past and own up to the mistakes as well that I did, so that the other people, we don't say people must commit crime and go to prison in order for them to be able to write books.
Yeah. So you said it was therapeutic. Something I wanted to ask you, how important is it to be in therapy, be it whilst you're in prison or when you come out?
I think, I don't want to say therapy as in, like it has to be a psychologist.
The traditional
There are many
form.
journeys of healing. And because if I say, if we just, you know, limit it to psychologists, there's only so many of us available, and then it means that in the absence of us, people cannot go through their healing journey. There's many, many paths through healing, and this is just one of them, you know, writing, narrating your story, and all the various programs. Umuresi was saying, you know, she's so grateful for the programs that are there. And it is about, one of the key words that came through from all three of them is the decision. The decision. You know, it's at any point in time. The change that we want is a decision away. You know, the decision is, I always make a distinction between decision and commitment.
Yes.
A decision is a 100-meter sprint. It's a short distance. It happens in a flash. But a commitment to stay the journey, that's a marathon, because that's a decision you have to remake every day. And life will throw you those moments that'll test. Umbongiseni spoke about resilience. That will test your tenacity, serious kangakanani about this. Because if it doesn't throw you into that, it's nice to be romantic about it, because you're not tested.
So, Themba, when you came out, I'm assuming that you changing, that happened in prison, right?
Yes, yes.
When you came out, what were the distractions? Were your old buddies calling you up and be like, you know, we can do this, we can make a quick buck here?
You know, the worst thing that could ever happen to a man incarcerated or a woman to spend time behind bars. Remember, we are labeled as a reject of the society, as a black sheep of the family. Some, they call us bandits and what have you. So now, the worst thing that could ever happen is for you not to have an exit plan. That is the problem. So that is why I said, no, let me just compile my own Bible and make sure that when I am reintegrated, I'm able to hit the ground running. So, and I always say, I do not regret the hardships I have known, because through them, I have touched life at every point. The book has opened so many doors. I remember I was in one interview, and then after that, I was called by the Deputy Minister of Police and said to me, Themba, truly rehabilitation has taken place, and I would like to work with you. And not only him, no, I speak now amongst, you know, many giants in our lives. And not only that, when I was in prison, I said to myself, I'm going to change my life and the lives of those who are incarcerated to spend time behind bars for killing people, for doing all sorts of things. And I was an epitome of cleanliness in prison. I was, you know, the number one in terms of rehabilitation. I invited, you know, the likes of Abo Advocate George Bezos, and then he came into prison, and then we did the biggest show, which was never done in prison, where I invited my spiritual father, which is Bishop Benjamin Dube, Abo Keke, Nezimu. That is, of course, your rehabilitation. And all the time when they ask me, "Talk right now, Themba, the book, why the book?" I said, when I started writing a book in prison, Abangan Bam, they said to me, "Themba, you are mad. Now we are
going to buy a prisoner's book?"
You are all that, and then the media in South Africa has labeled you as a kingpin and a mastermind. And I said, I'm going to convert those names. Now I've got 3 companies. One of them is Kingpin, the other one is Mastermind, and Kim Chipi is a holding company.
Right.
Hey man, snap to you. One thing we haven't touched on before we wrap up, as family of incarcerated people, right, on the outside, and then when they come out, what should we be doing more of?
What we need to be doing more of is to reflect on ourselves, you know, because it's easy to make them and the black sheep, you know, and of course we are justified. There is a truth to that, you know, but to reflect on ourselves, and to use their experiences for what they can teach us. But also to learn what forgiveness means.
Yes.
Because we don't know what it is to walk in their shoes. You know, and it's easy to stand on the moral high ground and speak as though we are blameless and innocent and clean slates of life, which we are not. You know?
But also, is it not a case of we should not be walking on eggshells around them?
Oh, you mean in terms of how we interact with them?
Yes, how we interact with them as well.
I think it becomes tricky because people don't know what to say. It's like, ngiyasabu khuluma, ngikhulume ngayo or ngingakhulumi ngayo, you know, and it's important. One of the things Utemba Aishilo is about having a plan. And part of the plan for me would be, how do I want people to be around me?
Oh, yes.
Because I've been absent. Now I'm re-entering the system. Batini, give them the indication. No, guys, we can talk about this. There are things I'm not comfortable to talk about. And people can respect those boundaries. But if you don't, then people are uncertain, you know, and it's like people with a disability. You know, people are not sure, should we talk about it or not? You know, and it helps to just give them the lead in terms of what you would find.
I love what you said there, that we should respect those boundaries, because there's also a certain level of just because somebody's convicted, now all of a sudden they've lost all rights to be a human.
Humanity.
So I can talk to you any which way I want because when you're a criminal, you know. So I love that, and I want to leave it on that note that I think we should learn that we must respect your boundaries.
Yeah. And we must know, again, to be incarcerated, it's not, you know, one's responsibility, but it's a societal responsibility, not only DCS. All the time I always say, do not dare compare myself to the likes of Mother Teresa or Gandhi, but I'm trying to change the world. And at home, people, they need to remember, when you do the crime, you must be prepared to do the time. And then another thing, you know, what really happened to me with that change. Okay, we'll close it.
No, talk.
Okay. No. When I realized, you know, all the things that I've done, you know, that amount to destruction, I said, I've got a master seed, you understand? And people, when I walked outside, they were ready, they would throw anything at me. But I said, no, man. The seed looks dead, but when you plant it onto the ground, it looks dead, but it will germinate.
It grows. Themba, thank you so much for your time. A big thank you to all our guests, Mure City Lady, Mbongiseni Mdagane, Themba Lukele, as well as Kosi Giane. The criminal justice system alone cannot help fight crime. Let's take a deeper look at ourselves and our society and actively be the change that we're always wanting to point out in what other people should be about. Join us again tomorrow for more Real Talk here on SABC 3. For myself, Anele, and the team, it's a good night from me. Ciao.